Let's discuss this, Alan.
69.
Here we go. Kelly Marie
here we go.
Tran on racism in Star Wars. I'll bring up the story, Alan, if you would read from our notes.
Sure.
I'll bring this up, but and we will talk about a Kelly Marie Tran movie this Friday. I saw The Wedding Banquet. I have thoughts,
Okay.
and we will discuss. But this is from Variety. Let me share this story here. Give me a second. And I have no issue with Kelly Marie Tran at all. So from Variety, here's the headline: Kelly Marie Tran and how Wedding Banquet empowered her to come out as queer, and why Star Wars racism is a microcosm for the social climate, by Abigail Lee. Alan, if you would read the story.
All right. A lot has changed for Tran since Star Wars, but as she looks back on her experience with that fandom, she knows that the racism she faced was symptomatic of a larger continuing issue. When considering what she wants to see change of actors of color who might not receive the support they need when they appear in major franchises, she replies, "The world." It's interesting how it seems, she says, it's interesting how it seems to be happening pretty consistently to actors of color who find themselves in these spaces. And I think these occurrences are a microcosm of the social climate that we're living in, and it's really unfortunate. Tran points out that people of color are often the forefront of storytelling now, and that audiences could perhaps begin to evolve too. The hope is that people who are not afforded the ability maybe to have access to these communities of queer people and people of color are able to see through the art that the people of color and queer people are also human, and they have hopes and dreams, she says. We live in a world where those identities have been weaponized so that people are not able to see the bigger picture, Tran continues. I really just want people to recognize it's the system that's the problem. Stop scapegoating people of color or queer people or anyone who's different.
Well, let me just say this. I have no issue with Kelly Marie Tran at all. Her weak character, she should not be attacked for that, obviously. And then they did nothing with her in the movie she was in, Rise of Skywalker, for what? Don't blink, you'll miss her. So no issue with her whatsoever. Everyone gets harassed online. The majority of comments I get are positive, and then people have called me fat. People have called me names. People have attacked me personally. Set your phasers to ignore, or excuse me, let me put it in Star Wars. Set blasters to ignore. There will never not be idiots online that make comments. When I see comments like that, I think, well, that person's having a bad day, or that person is probably 11 years old. And I'll tell you this, a friend of mine for years was a junior high teacher, and she said of junior high age kids, they are monsters. They call each other horrible names. Bullying is real. And I think there's an element of a lot of the people that engage in online harassment aren't really mature. It will there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's always there. Why give it attention? Now, back in the day, in early days of social media on Twitter, what I would do if someone said something that crossed the line, I would retweet them. And then what people would do, my followers would go after this person. I realized that's probably not the best way to handle it. I don't want to fan the flames. Now I just ignore comments, or I try to be funny. Alan, if you follow him at My Pal Al, I think Alan's very funny. I don't do.
I think so.
And I think, look, this is a separate. Forget that Alan and I are friends. If I didn't know Alan and I followed him, I think this guy's very witty. He's funny. He's got over 10,000 followers. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. But Alan, do you get harassed online?
I do, but not as much as other people, and I think it's because of the nature of my tweets.
But is it do you get why do you get harassed based on your
My
on your
politics.
ethnicity?
My
Oh, it's your
politics.
okay, that's it.
That's the only reason I've ever been harassed is my politics or my takes on movies. Other than that, no.
Well, I actually don't mind if someone goes after my take.
Yeah.
If they attack the take and say, "Well, you felt this way, I felt this way," but I would never be dismissive of someone because they have a take I don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I can say, "Oh, okay, well, I don't see it that way." In fact, we are about to have a conversation Friday about Sinners, and I know we disagree.
Yep. And about we'll talk about Friday.
We'll save it for Friday because
we'll talk about Friday.
It will be very spoiler filled, our conversation.
And our both our takes on it are very they're not the same.
Well,
I don't see it the way you do.
All I'm saying is I've dealt with people going after me forever. Let me tell you how long. I started, this is gonna sound like old man yells at cloud, but let me go. I've been doing Film Threat magazine in print since 1985. It was a Xerox fanzine, became a magazine in the 80s, moved to LA in 1989, sold the magazine to Larry Flint. Film Threat magazine was in print from 1985 through 1997 when the last issue was published. We went online in 1996. It's been fully online. And for the last 4 years now, longer, we have had our YouTube channel. So Film Threat as a media entity has existed in some form, a zine, a newsprint, magazine. You can find Film Threat magazine used on Etsy or eBay or whatever. I don't even have all the issues. I started a column in the 80s called Hate Mail. What was this column? We would take the most incendiary, hateful letters and we would publish them in Film Threat in 2 pages, right? And we would publish the actual letter. Now, I would edit them just to get to the salient point, and then I would have the last word. So in a way, I've been a target since then when people would mail you a letter on paper with a stamp. And let me tell you, I had an intern recently in the early 2000s that didn't even understand how to address an envelope with a stamp in one place, a return address in another, and where the address, they didn't know. So, people now don't send letters. I do like to send cards to people. Once in a while, I send cards. I send, I'll tell you, quick aside, a weird joke that I used to do is I would write an email and I would print out the email. Then I would take the printout of the email, I would fold it up, put it in a letter, address it to my friend, mail the printed version of the email to a friend, and then a week later I'd call my friend up and say, "Did you get my email?" I laughed. I could not stop. This was a dumb joke. This was a dumb joke I did to friends for years. I would print out emails and send it to them and then call them to see if they got my email. Okay, I know.
I'm sorry. I meant this one.
That's womp womp. All right, it's fine. I deserve that.
All right.
In any case, what I'm saying is I feel like, and they say there's a documentary about actors called Rhino Skin. Okay? It's directed by a guy named Hopwood Dupree. What is Rhino Skin? It's a documentary about actors auditioning. What does the term refer to? It refers to, if you want to be successful as an actor, you are constantly being rejected, criticized, examined, looked at, and in order to succeed as an actor, you have to have rhino skin, tough skin, to be able to survive everything that will come at you, to be a professional. And actors these days from the trans to the Zeglers, they have not developed rhino skin to basically hold their head up high and be able to survive in this business. So this makes me sad that she even gives it oxygen. Don't give it oxygen. Ignore the haters, as they say. Develop that rhino skin and go on with your career, and then your career will go where it goes. You know, I will say this, and I did not know this, but a friend of mine, when The Last Jedi came out, said that the reason that China did not like the character of what's her character's name? I forget now.
Oh, Rose Tico.
Rose Tico. That's right. You can get a dozen roses. That's 12 Rose Tico action figures. You can get those. Is that she is Vietnamese and Chinese people do not. I didn't realize there's all sorts of racism within the Asian community towards other Asian ethnicities.
Yeah, that surprises me. Wow, we hate each other, and like, we honestly do.
Like, you know, the Chinese don't like the Vietnamese, and no one likes the Japanese. For the Koreans don't like the Japanese for reasons. Look it up. But I did not know about this, and I'm certain that when she was cast, maybe they thought, oh, she's going to be so popular in China. And that's not the case. So all I'm saying is develop rhino skin, hold your head up high, and just be grateful you get to work in a business where, you know, you're not working in a factory. You're not working a service job. You know, I've done those jobs. So I would just be grateful, ignore it, move on, and don't give them oxygen. Final thoughts from you, Alan, and we'll go to comments.
Final thoughts? You spoke for...
Oh, no. Well, I'm sorry. I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Obviously, I do.
Let me talk about the real racism in this story.
Please.
This is the real issue. Having been a minority in the United States for, say, all my life, there are things I have learned about living in a white world. And I will say, I say this only to bring up the fact that, yeah, when I was a kid, I lived in a white world. And today, you know, the racism and things, quote unquote, racism I have to deal with, I would much less today, except the wokeness that comes out of the left. But that aside, the real racism in this story is the fact that they wrote two really bad roles and decided rather than fill it with white people, let's put minorities in those roles. And therefore you have Finn and you have Rose. You know, you needed to have an Asian in your story. Okay, I'll just make one up. Rose Tico, good job. Why does everyone hate it? Because you threw it in there because it was inorganic and you didn't know what to do with it. Same thing with Finn. You had a great idea. Rian Johnson didn't know where to take it and reverted it back to a supporting character when at least JJ had some kind of a seed in there that could have made that role better. This has been my observations, especially of Asians in entertainment since I was a kid. You know, we need more diversity. We need more representation. Well, how about this show? Sure, let's greenlight that show. And that show's really bad. And then they cast it with Asians, with minorities. It fails. And they say, well, there you go. That's what happens when you cast a show, produce a show full of minorities. You know, all my life, it was like one bad Asian show after the other. All American Girl with Margaret Cho. Oh, my God. And it wasn't until Mulan came out that I was like, wow, they finally got it right. And then Joy Luck Club. I'm like, they honored the book to a good degree. And then for 10 years, nothing until Crazy Rich Asians came out. And I mean, not nothing. There were things that came out in between, but they were all bad. And I remember, because I was, you know, you and I was doing this when Crazy Rich Asians came out. And I went to you and I said, I need to get to an early screening of this. And we've had issues with Warner Brothers at the time, and they did. And after watching Crazy Rich Asians, it was like, wow, we can really make good movies. And not only good movies that represent our culture and feels right to us, but has a broad appeal. And that's what that did. 2 other movies came out, and then came Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm like, look, it's really simple. You want to bring diversity to your movies, to all your stuff. Tell good stories. Put in actors who could do the role you created.
Yep.
They have to be black, white, Asian, whatever. But you need to you need people who are good at their jobs. And the movies that succeed are movies that are written, directed, and star people who are good at their jobs. Again, the real racism here is, you treat minorities as tokens. You find a token role, you throw them in that token role, and you wonder why we're all upset and why we've been fuming about this stuff over time. At the same time, the Black community has done a lot over the last few decades, and it confounds me that community is still complaining about the roles they're getting, the movies they're making, because certainly there have been a lot more good Black stories, good Black films, good Black movies, a lot more than there are Asian, Hispanic, and American in American movies.
But the thing is this, no one is stopping anyone. I want to end on this and go to comments. There's a lot of comments here, but I don't want to cut you off if you have more to say, Alan. But let me just say, no one is preventing anyone in the film industry from telling their story, because you can make an independent film and tell your story. In fact, movies that studios release, like A24, a lot of those movies are indie movies. They just make them and say, A24, do you think you want to release this? Okay, we will. No one is stopping anyone's story from being told. And by the way, you can go down a whole rabbit hole of Korean cinema, Chinese cinema, Japanese cinema. In fact, I think when they tell their own stories, they're more authentic. If you're an Asian American and you want to tell an Asian American story, tell your story. There are plenty of film festivals that will champion and put your movie in. In fact, sometimes, whether it's good or not, because they care more about identity than quality. True, sorry to tell you this, it's true, but you have a lot of support. And with so many, it's so inexpensive to make an indie movie now. You can make something of high quality for under $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's an award show that acknowledges movies like that. Award this. Go to awardthis.com. Learn about it. But all I'm saying is the complaint victim culture gets you nowhere. It only pushes people away. I think this constant hamster wheel of victim mentality is exhausting for the person that spouts that. Be grateful, make your stuff, do a mic drop, let the work speak for itself. And we will review her new movie, Wedding Banquet.
You will, yes.
I will. I've seen it. There are 2 gay-themed films we're talking about on Friday.
Ironically, you saw Wedding Banquet and I saw on Swift Horses.
We'll talk about that. But,
I
feel sorry for her because I feel like she's being baited and getting bad advice. And she's almost being encouraged by maybe her peers behind the scenes, people we don't know, to feed into this victimhood. Alan, if you will, and we'll go to comments.
Yeah. Again, I find it frustrating that she is blaming fans, calling them racist because her role was bad. And again, look, if there were 2 great examples of someone of a diverse person being shoved into a role for the sake of it, Lando has to be one of them because of the complaints. But George Lucas wrote Lando a real character, and put Billy D. Williams in, who played it perfectly. The other is Nick Fury, Sam Jackson. I mean, for as long as I've read comics at that point, Nick Fury was white, David Hasselhoff white. But they brought in Nick Fury, and it was they brought in Sam Jackson to play him, and it was just like, yeah, no, it works perfectly. It's not that you can't do this stuff; it's you got to hire the right people to pull it off, and there are certainly people of color who could pull it off. Here's the controversial thing I'll say, and this is a fallout from Monday, but the guy who's playing Snape, I mean, I get it. I understand why people are upset and all at arms. And I'll go to Rob's point. They must have seen something in him to cast him. And I'm willing to give the guy a chance because
Right.
I don't, I don't want to rehash what was said on Versus. But look, if it's going to work, he better be better than Alan Rickman. That's all I can say. And maybe he is. But I don't know. I don't know one way or the other, but I just find it interesting. And I'm just not willing to say that the Harry Potter series is dead because Snape is black.